So, Alistair, how we like to typically start is to ask, what is Tend Legal?
Ten Legal is a fully remote law firm that specialises in working with startups, scale-ups, and agencies, either on a project basis or a subscription model as well.
Okay. So, how is Tend Legal different to the legal services I might typically imagine a business would use, like a lawyer on retainer, for example?
So what we wanted to do with Tend is to create something that was a lot more accessible and a lot more useful for businesses. So we're a lot less formal. The way we work is more like a startup or an agency, perhaps. And the idea is that we work in a way that is more responsive, that we speak the same language as our clients, and that we can deliver services that are actually really valuable to them in a way that makes sense to them. So, for example, one of the things we do is we have this subscription offering, which essentially we become a company's legal team, and that's for a fixed monthly fee. We'll agree a scope, and within that scope, it's largely unlimited. So, one of the differences, so I think people traditionally think when they're using a lawyer, they think of going to an external firm. So perhaps they've got a big project, they've got something that's high value or particularly complicated or carries a lot of risk, and they'll go to a law firm and get them to handle it. What we want to encourage people and businesses particularly to do is to involve legal at an earlier stage. So it's more akin to an in-house team where, if you have a lawyer down the corridor, you've got a new idea for the business, a new product line or a new service, you can get that legal input at a really early stage. So it stops small problems becoming big problems. It can avoid problems altogether. And it's just a much smoother way of working. So that, I suppose, that's a key difference.
I think something that people should understand about your model, this sort of Netflix type model to legal fees, is the fact that you aren't totting up the minutes.
Yeah.
There is a high degree of risk for you because, you have to get it right. Because if you think, do you know what, this company won't be, they'll be quite straightforward, and then it isn't.
Yeah.
You're going to at least take a few months at probably a bit of a hit because you're going to do a lot more hours than you're really billing.
Yeah. Yeah, and this has been a big thing for us. We wanted to move away from billing for time. Because people don't like it. People don't like that approach where you go to a lawyer and they say, "Oh, this is the project. We'll give you an estimate. We think it will take this long. Here's our estimate." And then at the end of the project, they say, "Oh, well, that took a bit longer than we thought. So the fee's actually this much more." And it's that uncertainty, I think, is really unhelpful to clients. But also, I think as lawyers, if we're the experts, we should have an understanding of what's involved in a project, of what the contingencies might be, and be able to price within, to give a price like other businesses do that kind of take that into account. And so with the subscription model, I mean, it's a big challenge for us to move away from thinking about time, but we're trying to do that. And what we find is you really have to take a long view on things. So there might be months where we're doing loads of work, which compared to the fee we're getting that month, it is wildly out of kilter. But then there might be months where we do nothing, and so you have to be flexible. You have to take that long view, and we do. The way it works is we say, well, clients can leave any time on a month's notice, but also we can keep usage under review. As a client grows, their needs will change and the amount of legal work they require will change. And so we can have a conversation about that and say, well, look, this is where we were when you started. This is where you are now. We think, the fee probably needs to be a bit higher or be a bit lower. And we can do that. And so it does require us to have a good relationship with our clients. It puts the onus on us to deliver value constantly. And there is an element of risk. And I think that's uncomfortable for lawyers to and when we were first thinking about the model, your instincts as a lawyer are, well, we need to tie people in for a fixed term and we need to very tightly define what's included, what's not included. And where we landed with that is A, it's just so complicated to try and do that, and B, it's become so unattractive that nobody will sign up because they feel like they're being locked into some sort of long, expensive contract. Whereas if you can say, look, it is relationship focused. If you want to leave, you absolutely should leave because it means we're not doing our job. And also that there's that flexibility for the service to grow as the client grows, as their business develops and the complexity increases.
How does monthly flexibility that you offer on a subscription basis compare to how somebody might typically interact with a law firm on the flexibility basis? How does the flexibility compare?
I mean, I don't think there's many firms doing what we do in the same way. There are sometimes, traditionally people talk about retainers, and that can mean lots of different things, but it can mean a sort of monthly fee, basically just to have the right to call the lawyer. And then actually, if they want to do any work, there's another charge for that. Or it can sometimes be a bundle of hours that...
Yes,
that,
like a totting up process.
Yeah,
it's, you pay us X a month, but that gets scored up against how many hours we work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, you still owe us money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's how it often ends out, isn't it? It's, but I mean, part of the thing for us in moving away from time-based billing is that our feeling is that it discourages innovation, and it for some things I suppose that might work. So if you're billing for time, you're incentivized to be very, very thorough, and that there might be projects where that is warranted, but a lot of the time it's not. And so you get this situation where lawyers are really over-engineering things, making things far too complicated for what they actually are. Whereas, of course, if you're billing fixed fees or on a subscription basis, as we are, yes, we have to get things right. Of course we do. Our reputations are on the line.
You don't always need a brain surgeon for a common cold, though, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's completely it. You kind of, it's about finding solutions that are proportionate. And also, it encourages us to think about how we can innovate and how we can find better ways of doing things, which might result in, faster service, more efficient service.
Yeah, I think for most people who aren't lawyers, the reluctance to use a lawyer is one of the biggest issues when thinking about instructing them. And so I think creating a service that actually encourages people to bring in the lawyer, I think there's so many companies out there who are thinking, these are our terms and conditions, but are we really going to go out there and find a lawyer and pay for this? And when it's this case of, let's amend the terms and we've got 10 legal, we're already paying them their subscription, let's just go down the hallway, let's just say, could you want to have a look at this? We're thinking of changing this. It doesn't have to be this long instruction. It is very much that like tap on the shoulder, like, can you come and have a look at this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that. And also it's iterative. So, we can draft a contract for someone, they can use it. And then if they come back to us and say, I'm getting a lot of pushback on this particular clause, is there a way we can kind of tweak this so we're still protected, but it's not so scary, for example? We can then tweak it. And again, that's another advantage, I think, of the subscription model, is that it's an ongoing service. It's relationship based. It's not just this one hit and there you go, you're on your own.
One of the questions I have, it seems to me that 10 Legal opens up a bit of an opportunity, like you were saying with the analogy of being down the corridor, having a lawyer at the end of the corridor. If I'm being billed by the minute and I'm using a traditional law firm, I'm not so keen for my team beneath me to kind of query the law firm directly, because that's going to cost me money. If I'm working with 10 Legal, it seems to me that I would be able to then open up the kind of communication channels to that team to speak with you directly without the fear that at the end of the month I'm going to get an unexpected bill. Is that something that happens with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we find is the way we organize things is usually for each subscription client, we have 2 people who are assigned to that client as their main points of contact. So there'll be two lawyers that will deal with the main communications, but then other members of our team will get involved as well as needed. So if there's particular specialism they have or particular experience, or sometimes just they're available, so that helps keep things moving. And then we have members of the different people on the client's team as well, interacting with different people on our team. So it's this really nice relationship where we kind of get to know them, we get to know the different people in the different departments, and we actually want to encourage people to contact us, of course, and we want to know what's going on in the business, because that helps us give much better service, much better advice, and that's really helpful, having the relationships in each stage of the business.
Because the team beneath you could actually brainstorm legal aspects of a particular project they have in mind without having to and kind of iron out the small creases, without having to bring it to the kind of final decision making of drawing up contracts and things like that, so that the business owner can rest assured that the project or the product has legs in that respect.
Yeah, very much so. And also, I think we sometimes think about the sort of process. So not just about the documents, it's thinking about, well, how are these documents being used? Who is using them within the business? And then thinking about, well, how can we streamline that process? So if it's a business that has lots of contracts, the sales team are often the people that will prepare and send those contracts out. So it's about having good templates. It's about having playbooks about what kinds of clauses can be included. And then on the negotiation front, it can be, again, the playbook that will have guidelines of who can agree what amendments to a contract, what needs to be escalated to whom, whether it needs to go to management internally or whether it needs to come to us. And so it's not necessarily funneling everything through us. It's sometimes about helping the client deal with things themselves in a way that gives them that protection, but that then we're on hand to support if they need us.
You mentioned that you want to encourage your clients to contact Tent Legal, which is great. But with regards to responsiveness, what can a client of Ten Legal expect? Can they contact you any time of the day? How do they contact you when somebody's working with Ten Legal? How do they share those smaller queries and get those quick answers?
So it really depends on the client in terms of how they contact us. So some people prefer email. We have phones as well, of course. And one thing that's been really popular is we'll set up a shared Slack channel for businesses that use Slack. We'll have a shared channel with them so they can just message us. And it's about removing those obstacles. It's about reminding them that we're there. It's that immediacy. You can just send us a message and then we can hop on a call, or we can, find out what it is you want. We have clients that will just send us a document over Slack and say, "Hey, can you review this, please?" And often then we need a bit more context. But it's just that ease of starting a conversation, which compared to, if you had to send that to an external firm as a separate project every time, you would then, you'd send them the request. There'd be a meeting. They would have to draw up an engagement letter for that piece of work, agree a fee. There may be, client due diligence they'd have to do. And it's just, so it's removing all of that. So it's just really seamless and frictionless, I suppose.
I think that's probably your biggest challenge, is conveying that message of simplicity to those. If you're in and around lawyers all the time, you'll think, oh, here we go. Pull out my thesaurus so I can instruct a barrister or instruct my solicitor to undertake a piece of work for me, and it's going to take 2 weeks of them umming and ahhing about their fees, and it really is a barrier to people getting the advice that they need and the support. So having those Slack channels just to drop a message quickly without the formality, that is, in my view, your absolute strongest merit of the company.
Yeah, I think it's a good one, certainly. And I remember when we first when we had this idea and we discussed it with one of our clients who is they're like an IT company, and the founder was gobsmacked that a law firm would use Slack. He just couldn't. And he said, "That's amazing. If you could do that, that would be absolutely brilliant." And so people love it, and it may not seem like a huge thing for us, but actually, maybe based on their previous experiences or something, it does seem like a big thing to them. And just it's that feeling of just support. I think we want clients to feel like we're there for them, and so giving them the means to access us really easily is important.
So on the back end of Tend Legal, I presume there's a group of talented people, talented individuals.
Yes.
As your client base grows and is growing at the moment, do you have a certain proportion of clients per head on your team? Can people kind of rest assured that, let's say they scale up their legal requirements and their subscription cost increases, does the team that they're dealing with also increase in size, or is it more of a amount of time they're getting from that team increase in size?
It really depends on the client. We have that flexibility to bring more people in to service one client. We found having, as I say, two people who are the main points of contact works well, because then they know what's going on and they can kind of coordinate things. Even if there's other members of the team actually handling specific projects, you have two people that kind of have the bigger picture. But yeah, absolutely. As clients grow, we can grow with them. And certainly when we have hired before, I think, how many have we got now? There's 9 of us at the moment. But when we have hired, we found actually we've been able to find some really good people who are interested in joining us. So yeah, it's exciting. That is an exciting moment when you're able to do that. And we have a great team, and as we go, I'm sure that will increase as well.
How have your team responded to this new way of working, where they're communicating with their clients now, not in large letters, but on Slack on a daily basis?
I think they like it. I mean, so the team are from a variety of backgrounds. Some of them are from, in-house with quite big companies who are probably more used to that, because I think the way we work is more like an in-house team. It's kind of fielding inquiries coming from different parts of the business, of kind of having to respond quite quickly, of being quite commercial in our advice. So I think those coming from an in-house background have probably adapted to it more easily. For some that have been in a more traditional firm, it can take some adjustment. It's but people do like it. And
why is this person ringing me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and sometimes it's a juggle when you have kind of inquiries coming in from different fields and knowing how to sort of prioritize things. But all of it comes down to we need to have good relationships with our clients and being able to kind of assess what's important, and sometimes as well to maybe educate the clients a bit as to how they can get the best out of us, and in terms of like timeframes and not leaving things to the last minute, and managing those expectations, I guess, so that they know what they can reasonably expect from us and that we can deliver that.
From the outside looking in, the legal system can appear quite draconian. And here you are doing something very modern, very fresh, bringing the 21st century into a very old system. How do your peers from other law firms view what you're offering?
I would imagine that there's quite a few that think it's ridiculous. I mean, they're too polite to say.
That means you're onto something.
Well, exactly. We've had a lot of positive feedback, and that's the thing. You probably only hear the positive feedback. I'm sure there were many people, and I imagined when we set the firm up, I remember being quite nervous about this because it is quite a conservative profession, and even silly things like the fact that on the photos of us on the website, I'm wearing like a t-shirt and jeans, and I remember waking up in the night the day before we were going to launch the website. I was like, I should have worn a shirt. I should have worn a jacket. I was like, but actually, I think it was the right decision, because if you're going to go down a route, you might as well go all in. And some people will look at our website and it's not for them. They'll think, I don't want my lawyer to look like that. I don't, and that's fine, because there are plenty of people that will see it and think, actually, this is what I'm looking for in a lawyer. And one thought we had when we started the firm was that we wanted to make a law firm for people that didn't really like lawyers, that didn't like
Everyone,
the traditional. it's a big market. But that found that the idea of a traditional firm really off-putting, but also to create a firm that people wanted to use, and that's partly in how we present ourselves and trying to be on the same page as our clients. And partly, in terms of the quality of services, it needs to be really high quality legal services, but delivered in a way that people find useful and engaging and fresh. And we want people to enjoy the time they spend with us, their calls. It's not about putting barriers up. It's about kind of making things really accessible.
Cool. So you're not just in-house lawyers in kind of imagining the format of work. You're actually, from a cultural perspective as a company, you want to become part of the companies you're working with, like an in-house lawyer. So you want to be part of their trials and tribulations and solving their problems and creating new solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the model just lends itself really well to that, to exactly that, to having those strong relationships. And, it's a difficult time. The last year particularly has been a difficult time for a lot of businesses, and some of our clients have really struggled. Some of them are doing really well, but we journey through that with our clients, and there's those ups and downs. We're sort of part of it, which is a privilege for us. I mean, it feels really nice compared to the kind of traditional way of working. It feels like we're much more aligned with our clients, that we have much stronger relationships.
Feels more collaborative as opposed to sort of a resource provision service.
Completely.
And it seems beneficial because when you come to tackling new tasks, you've got a history and a relationship built prior that allows you to solve that next task quicker than you would have if it had been a blank slate.
Yeah, completely. They don't have to kind of give us the context every time because we know it.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's unusual. The monthly subscription's disruptive and unusual. I think it's interesting that you chose to make it so flexible that it's only 1 month rolling. Why did you decide to do that?
And this was a tough one for us, for me, because obviously as a lawyer, the instinct is to try and nail everything down. Let's get a fixed term contract that automatically renews, and you have to give a 6 month notice to get out of. But of course, if you're trying to sell that to someone, people these days don't want to be locked into fixed term contracts. And I find this, if someone's trying to sell me something and it's got a minimum fixed term, you sort of think, well, why do you need it to have a minimum fixed term? Is it because you're not confident in the services you're delivering? And I think it would put people off. I mean, this is... So we just felt that actually, if people want to leave, it means that we're not doing our job properly, or for whatever reason they're not getting value from it, and really they should leave. We don't want to be trapping people in.
You don't want an unhappy customer, do you?
No, and it's partly about, from our own perspective, having that risk and being willing to show clients that we are willing to take on risk. Is an attractive proposition to clients, but also I think it really puts that onus on us to deliver great service, because we know they can leave.
Stay, not the contractual obligations.
Exactly, but it also makes us raise our game, and we're conscious that people could leave with a month's notice, and so it should be one of these kind of positive feedback things. Actually, because we know they could leave, we'll do everything to make sure they don't want to.
Yeah, certainly from my personal perspective, as a prospective client of 10 Legal, seeing you put a monthly rolling basis gives me confidence in your service. You believe in your service, and so I will believe in your service, obviously, once I've experienced it. Could you give me some indication as to what is onboarding like for a person joining 10 Legal to use?
Yeah, so usually there'll be a kind of scoping exercise where we'll sit down with the client, or it might be online generally, and talk through almost every aspect of their business. So looking at, how many shareholders they've got, do they have a shareholders agreement? Are they raising investment? What are their contracts like? Have they got all their employment documents organized? How many employees? What are their, and then looking at their future plans as well. Are they going to be raising investment? Are they going to be hiring over the next period? And go into quite some detail about all of this and what their needs are, what they're looking for in a lawyer. And then from that, we can take it away and put together a quote, which, well, there'll be a scope of, sometimes we'll have 3 different tiers, I suppose, with different, which will include different things to give them some flexibility. There'll be a scope and there'll be a fixed monthly fee. So if that's all agreed, there's then we have an online kind of platform for onboarding where they can sign their agreement and it will verify their ID and set up a direct debit for the monthly payments. So we wanted to make that as kind of smooth as possible, rather than, you know, asking people to, obviously we can't ask them to come in and with their original passports. So we've kind of had to find ways to do that digitally. But yeah, it's a great platform. We use a platform called Legal, Legl, and which does make it really, really smooth. And then once that's all done, the first step is often to take that information we've already got and to work out with the client, well, what are the priorities? So we've identified projects. So it might be that we need to review your main terms and conditions and client contracts. The employment handbook might need a review, and we'll identify the projects, we'll schedule those. So we won't try and do everything at once, because it doesn't work for us, but also for the client, because what I think clients often forget is that doing these projects does still require some involvement on their part. Well, yes, we'll be preparing the documents, but to do that well, we need input from them as to what their needs are and feedback on the documents. So we try and space things out across a period of 6 months, a year, and also to leave time for kind of the unforeseen queries and requests that will come up inevitably as you go along.
Yes.
And that's it really. And then we get going and obviously set up the Slack channel if that's what they want.
So the discovery call that you have with them at first, that's cost free to the client.
Yeah.
Cool. And is that unusual?
I think some firms do charge for an initial consultation. I never really understood that, because it's almost discouraging people from even picking up the phone to you. I think a lot of firms will have an initial kind of consultation at no charge. So I was at one firm for most of my career. I was there for 13 years. I trained with them, qualified, and became a partner. And I was very happy there. So it wasn't that I was, had this axe to grind. I wasn't fuming away and just waiting for my chance. I'd never really thought about starting my own firm. But what was the catalyst was lockdown. And as for a lot of people, I think it just made us think about how we'd been living and working. I'd spent a lot of my time commuting from Epsom to Fulham, which is not a huge commute, but while our children were quite young, I was not around that much during the week, and that was one thing in terms of lifestyle and family life and work and balancing all of that out. But I think more so there was this sort of realization that you could work remotely, that people were quite happy having meetings on Zoom or Teams. And also I think the dialing down of formality that happened during lockdown. So you'd have those calls with people in their homes and, ask how their families are and their kids. And I actually really liked that. I thought it was this really nice human kind of way of interacting with people. And then also there was this kind of thought that had been bubbling away in my head for a long time, that actually there's this disconnect between the type of businesses I liked working with, which tend to be fast growing, informal, kind of creative businesses that are doing exciting things, and between how they work and present themselves and communicate and how law firms operate. And I remember there was one instance where I remember going down to see a client at my old firm, and I was there in my suit and tie and everything. And the client was this guy who's running a really successful business, and he's there in his jeans and t-shirt, and he started the meeting by apologizing for not dressing up. And I was just like, this is awful. This is the wrong way round. Like, you shouldn't be apologizing. He's the client. And so how it just made me wonder, well, and it's that kind of what if question that I think a lot of businesses come out of, or a lot of ideas is the start point for a lot of ideas or business. Like, what if there was a law firm that actually didn't wear suits and actually presented itself in a much more approachable, casual way? And what if it looked a bit like a creative agency, or all of those questions? And then that was kind of the thought process, and it became just quite a fun exercise of daydreaming. Or if you could invent a firm, if you could start from scratch, what would a law firm look like? And obviously you've got to think about what it's going to do, and what's the purpose of a firm, and then you find yourself thinking, well, what are you going to cut out? What are you not going to do that traditional firms do? And there's an awful lot you can cut out. And particularly if the whole idea is to be different and to appeal to a certain market, actually the more distinctive you are, the better. So there's no point in half measures when it comes to something like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. But to be clear, even though you've taken off your shirt, you're still just as good a lawyer. The quality
even without
of the work,
my shirt, I'm still a good lawyer.
Do most people realise that a lawyer without a suit on is just the same lawyer? Who knows? I think they do.
I think they do. I mean, you definitely, there are people out there that want their lawyer to be wearing a suit and tie, shiny cufflinks, and those people have a lot of options. But there are people as well that find that just difficult to relate to. It's kind of it's. I think
it's intimidating.
Yeah,
it's not approachable.
No, it's not approachable.
You can't have this model that is very much based on come to us whenever you need us. If it's like, yeah, but I'm too scared to knock on your door.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? And I think historically the legal sector has wanted to give that kind of formal image that actually, because I think people expected it to start with, but also I think people did find it reassuring. There's probably a time when actually somebody in a decent suit and a nice watch, you think, actually, here's someone that is, they know what they're doing. And other business people dressed like that. That was the culture they were in. So it's I think what we're doing, it's not just about wear what you like, it's just be comfortable. It's about thinking about who we want to interact with. How are they working? How do they dress? How can we relate to them on the level they're at, and not put these barriers up, I think.
Well, if I imagine lawyers, they always wear the posh suits. I mean, the very good ones, they wear the nice stuff and they drive the nice cars, because that's a qualification of their services in essence. When a lawyer arrives who's got a lot of money, you think that they must be a successful lawyer, and they quite often can't actually disclose who they've been working with or who they're currently working with because of the privilege. How does Tend Legal kind of inform people of the fantastic services you do provide?
I think it's, or
is the proof in the pudding?
Is the proof is in the pudding? A lot of now we obviously it's a different thing, but there are those touch points, as you say. With a traditional firm, you'll go along and there'll be things like, they've got a really nice lobby and a wood panelled meeting room, or whatever it is, whatever. But of course, being a virtual firm, you don't have those opportunities. But what you do have, you have a website, you have your branding, you have social media. And so it's those messages become really, really important, both in terms of what we're saying and how we're saying it. And so we've, from the start, I mean, LinkedIn has been a huge thing for us. And not necessarily pumping out legal content, but just, it can be about all sorts of things, but connecting with people, letting people see who we are, and talking a bit about some of our clients we've worked with as well. So people kind of get that idea about who we are, the kind of work we've been doing, and hopefully that we're a safe pair of hands.
But I think it's smart because your website and your content, I find it really similar to that of a SaaS product. The way that you come on, you book in a call, it really reminds me of sales in the software world. And I think if you're working with startups and scale ups, that's the kind of language they're used to. They're not used to booking a conference room on Chancery Lane in 3 weeks' time. They're used to booking a call now. This is my diary. Jump on a Zoom with me in 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's about, as you say, giving people that kind of service that they're used to, or working in a way that makes sense to them.
So do you find a lot of your clients are in that kind of space? They're in the tech space. Is that a common client of yours?
Yeah. We have a lot that are have some element of tech. We've never had a kind of particular niche in terms of sector. We have all sorts. So for example, to give you some examples of the kind of clients we're working with, there's a social media platform called We Are 8 who are they've got this great ambition to make social media a force for good, which it's a really exciting model. They kind of users get paid to watch adverts and answer questions about them. The platform itself is sort of hate free. It's all very positive, and it's just a really bold vision, I think, of a different future. So we love clients like that who have got some grand scheme that makes the world better in some way. Now, it's not all kind of social. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not. That might be, in terms of social change, it might be in terms of disrupting an industry or just making a service or a product better. But some other examples, we've got a client who is shaking up the insurance industry, and they're called Concilio, and they've got this great platform for their brokers. They're very focused on the sort of well-being of brokers and making their life easier and making their job easier and more fulfilling. And they're growing really rapidly, and it's just great to follow that journey of clients like that. Some of them don't have a tech element at all, and we're working with a chain of restaurants, for example, who's we worked with them from the beginning, from when their first restaurant, and helping them with investment for that, and then seeing as they've opened their second, and they're looking to do more now, and it's a real buzz, and it's obviously nice to go and eat in the restaurant as well.
Yeah, it's a good client.
So food clients are good.
And the thing is, talking earlier on, you were saying how you came, and I thought it is a good story. You're coming out of your existing legal firm. You've seen yourself on the picture of your new disruptive startup, 10 Legal, and you're wearing a shirt and jeans and you think I'm underdressed. And does people's perception of a lawyer matter when they come to engaging? But I think what we've seen in the last year and a half is quite a lot of people actually trying to use AI, things like ChatGPT, for legal services or legal support, which is the total other end of the spectrum to the sharply dressed lawyer who's arriving in the nice car. And to me, and this is an uninvited opinion, it seems like 10 Legal strikes a nice balance of the in-between, where it's much more informal than the traditional lawyer, but it's not so informal that it's just a piece of software giving you garbled answers. It's a nice hybrid of the two, where it's personable and professional.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we're exploring AI. I think it's exciting, it's terrifying, but as things stand at the moment, it doesn't replace a qualified lawyer.
No.
You can use ChatGPT to create a contract, and it might be fine, but the trouble is you don't know, and it might well not be fine as well. So I think we are quite relationship focused, which lawyers have always been. What we're doing in many ways is not revolutionary. I think good lawyers have always understood what their clients need, form strong relationships with them and know how to deliver it. But of course, how the world works has changed, and so how we do that has to change as well. And and whether that's using AI, it may be. And I think AI is still not at the stage where it can, as I say, create whole documents reliably. But certainly I've been using it for more sort of administrative tasks, and I think inevitably it will become a bigger part of how we work.
Can do the heavy lifting, and then you can come in and do the cosmetics and
Yeah.
make it structurally sound, basically.
And it is crucial that you have the quality assurance of what it produces. And that's the kind of key thing for me. And that's why something like a service like yours becomes particularly useful, because now if I'm able to do quite a lot of the work myself, but I need a professional and qualified pair of eyes to make sure that it's not nonsensical, I particularly don't want to pay a massive fee and have some sort of engagement letter from a law firm. I just want to be able to ring my guy and have him check it over. And that's what 10 Legal provides. And then the advice to then improve and go further with it.
Yeah.
You mentioned your service covers people who are seeking investment or going through the process of getting investment. May I ask, does 10 Legal intend to seek investment as you grow?
We don't have plans to at the moment. It's we've always kind of seen it as something that will grow organically. And the beauty of a service business is you can start with not very much, and you can build gradually. So yeah, we don't have plans to kind of skyrocket it particularly, but not to say we're not ambitious, but I think we would probably value keeping control of things ourselves and growing in that way. Yeah.
Obviously you've got quite a bit of skin in the game, but how important would you say legal advice and drafting is for founders of startups and scale-ups who are seeking investment?
I think it's really important. It's as well, there's the legal services associated with the actual investment round, making sure that whatever documents the investor is giving you are not completely screwing you over, that they're commensurate. You're giving away the control, you're giving away is kind of in line with what you would expect for the level of investment you're getting. But I suppose the piece before that is having your house in order legally is something that's attractive to investors. So if you can, when your investor comes to do due diligence, if you can show them, well, look, we've got solid terms and conditions that were drafted by our legal team, we've got proper employment documents and handbooks, the share option scheme is properly done, and we've got a shareholders agreement, our IP is protected properly, that all gives some comfort. And in the current market, particularly where investors are increasingly cautious, it's maybe, I think it's, it's probably wrong to say that will be the difference between them investing and not investing. It could be, but it gives them that extra bit of assurance that actually this is a proper business, that these founders know what they're doing, they've got everything lined up, and we trust them. So I think it can be a really important thing and a really attractive thing for investors, and also to be able to say to the investors, well, we have a legal team on hand to help us as we go. Again, I suppose it's about avoidable risk, isn't it? Of course, there's always risk in any sort of startup or scaling business, but if you can cut down the avoidable risk, then again, it's just giving the investor that little bit more assurance that their investment is safe.
Yeah, and it seems to, as well as diminishing the risk on the legal services that have been provided so far, up to the point where the company's receiving investment. Then after the investment, as the company continues to grow, certainly as sort of the year ahead or the 2 years ahead, the investor and the business owner can have peace of mind then, because they have an approximate idea of what their legal services are going to cost them in moving forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that kind of the foreseeability on cost is really important. Like in comparison with, engaging a law firm when you need them, and the legal spend being
finger in the air.
It's big, it's huge this month, there's nothing this month.
Yeah.
We don't know how much we're going to spend. Whereas we can say, well, actually, we've looked at this, we know that you have these needs, and for this monthly fee, these needs will be covered. It makes life so much easier for budgeting, and as you say, for investors, for cash flow, for for forecasting, they can see, at least on the legal front, with some certainty what's going to be spent.
This is that moment where we do the dramatic break.
Oh,
this
okay.
isn't. I'm going to get up and show my bum. No, this isn't
going really
This
well.
isn't camera. This is great, but it's
Really good.
We're 45 minutes in, so we only have about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I wanted to just touch base with you while we're sat here and see if there's anything that comes to mind that you haven't spoken about that you'd like to speak about.
There's one thing that I probably should mention is we've got this sideline. Is it a sideline? We've always had it on our website. It's this service for advising employees on settlement agreements. I don't know. Is it even worth mentioning on this? It's
Yes.
quite different.
How does that work?
So it's about settlement agreements. So when an employee is made redundant or their employment's terminated, they're sometimes given a settlement agreement which sets out the terms on which their employment will end, the package they're going to receive, and it protects the company from the employee bringing any claims against them. And for that to be enforceable, the employee has to have legal advice. And it's something that I think a lot of lawyers find a bit annoying, having to give this advice on a contract to an individual. And actually, I've always really enjoyed it because you get to see someone at an interesting time of their life. It's a nice self-contained piece of work. You advise them on one agreement. Sometimes we negotiate the terms.
Is
of
that
agreement.
independent? Sorry, does that have to be an independent lawyer, or can it be a lawyer from the company who has made that person redundant?
It has to be independent.
Okay.
So we can't. It's not something we do for our existing company clients. It's employees will come to us on this. And what we did, in fact, I registered the domain like years ago. I don't know. I woke up one morning. I was like, checkmysettlement.com. This is it. We're gonna register the domain. It's gonna be huge. And then we just didn't do anything with it. We kind of offered the settlement agreement advice through 10 Legal, and just recently we've moved that onto its own. We've moved it onto its own website on checkmysettlement.com. And it's the reason for separating it out is because it's appealing to different people, right? It's not obviously 10 Legal is companies. Check My Settlement is individuals who are in a very particular circumstance.
And it is a one-off
and it's
project, right?
It's a one-off thing.
It's finite.
Yeah. So it's quite different from our usual work. But our thinking is it's just the way we've set it up as well. It's as sort of the admin is as automated as possible. So people book a meeting with us, they upload their details and the agreement, and really all we have to do is have the meeting with them. So the time we spend is actually on the valuable bit. It's not on the kind of arranging a meeting, opening a file and stuff. That's largely automated. So we can spend proper quality time with the client, advise them on their agreement, and then they can make a decision about their future.
Interesting. So that's a separate sort of front end into the same team that runs 4/4.
Yeah. Yes.
And presumably not open necessarily to employees who've recently left a company who's one of your clients.
No.
Or maybe.
Yeah. No. It can't be for clients, for people that have left our client companies. So it's almost a separate business in terms of the focus, but obviously it's the same people servicing it. It's within the same company.
It is still hosted on a separate domain though, so it is checkmysettlement.com as opposed to 10 Legal.
Yes, yeah, and it's we explain on there that it is it's 10 Legal providing
yes
it. But it's that kind of, it's just to, I suppose, to separate for marketing purposes. We're talking to this audience when we're talking about Check My Settlement. We're talking to this audience for 10 Legal, and I think for SEO and advertising and things, I think Check My Settlement will be marketed in a different way, and just keeping it separate.
I mean, in a different life, when I was joining a new company from an old company, I was in such a situation as you just described, and the company I was joining actually supported me in the resolution of that problem because I was joining their company. It seems to me like somebody could take advantage of that same thing if they were working with 10 Legal, where quite often people are discussing settlement issues while joining a new company, right?
Yeah.
And so you can support them in tandem. You can support the business owner with your legal services, but you can also support their growing team as they join from other companies where there might not have been a completely amicable split,
Yeah.
or they've been headhunted and they don't want to wait out a year of gardening leave.
Yeah, that's true, and that's something we do quite a lot of with people joining companies. So people joining our client companies, and the people are subject to restrictive covenants, for example, just helping everyone, our client and the person joining, to understand what the restriction means, how enforceable it is, and how best to comply with it.
Or get around it.
Well, no, that's not.
Break the fourth wall. No, yeah. Cool. Okay. That was useful to mention. I think that'll be interesting. And I don't think it's actually quite so. The thing is, most people don't talk about those kind of situations that they're in because there are quite restrictive barriers to entry. So I know, for example, in my own personal situation, when I had the situation just like that, I didn't think to go to a legal firm because I appreciated that it wasn't so serious. But had I had the ability to connect with someone like Check My Settlement and had a conversation informally to discuss my options, I absolutely would have done. And so then the situation becomes less rare than we think. It's rare at the moment, but it won't be so rare in the future. And most people who leave a job have restrictions of one type or another, which seem kind of quite often unreasonable.
Yeah. I mean, the Check My Settlement is a specific, so it's where they've been offered a settlement agreement.
Oh, I see.
Actually, the company offers to pay you almost in all cases because the company can only have that protection if the employees had legal advice. The company will pay for the employee to have legal advice. So
I see.
It's
in their interest as well.
Yeah.
Great. Alistair, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
Brilliant.